Good morning, everybody, and welcome to WSPY's Community Forum program. We're glad to have you with us. Thanks for joining us. Well, coming up this Friday is a very special event over at Yorkville High School in the cafeteria. It's going to be the Jazz Band of Yorkville High School. We're there with a special featured guest artist. And joining us to talk about this event and to talk about the Jazz Band in particular is the Director of Bands, Victor Anderson. And Victor, good morning to you.
Good morning, Chris. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. Thanks for joining us out here today to do this program. I should preface today's opening by saying that I had the unique opportunity, along with my wife here last week at the American Businesswomen's Association meeting, to be entertained by the Yorkville Jazz Band, something I didn't know even existed. And Victor and several of the students of the Jazz Band were there to perform for the ABWA members and their guests. And it was a wonderful opportunity to really see how kids at that level, at that age, have grasped some of the concepts of jazz. But before we get into that, let's find out about our guest. First of all, Mr. Victor Anderson, where are you from? How long have you been at Yorkville High School? What's your background?
Well, thanks for asking. This is my first year at Yorkville, and I've just had a blast this year. It's been probably my most rewarding year of teaching. This is my 7th year teaching, and I've kind of been all over the state. I originally graduated from Batavia High School, so I'm from this area.
Okay.
And went to Illinois Wesleyan University, where I got my bachelor's degree in music education. And then I ended up teaching in a small town called Aledo, Illinois, out in western Illinois, south of the Quad Cities.
Mm-hmm.
Then for a couple of years I taught in Aledo doing the high school band program. Then I moved to Galesburg High School over by Peoria and taught for 2 more years there. And then I married my high school sweetheart, who I met on a high school band trip. So I've kind of been...
Congratulations on that.
Yeah, thank you. Band has always been kind of my passion and led to other passions as well. And so after Galesburg, I taught for 2 years up in Algonquin at Jacobs High School. Mm-hmm. And now I feel like I've really found my home here at Yorkville.
Well, being the director of bands, then, are you more involved than just the jazz band? There are other opportunities, either as an orchestra, a marching band, that you also have to perform duties?
Absolutely. And as of right now, we have 2 band directors in the district, and Steve Moline does the grades 4th through 6th grade, and then I'm responsible for 7th through 12th grade bands.
Okay.
So we have a 7th and 8th grade combined concert band, and then we have the high school band, which performs at all different venues. We start the school year with a marching band program, mm-hmm.
which
which is pretty visible at the football games at Yorkville. And then we move into concert season, and while we're doing concert season, we have a pep band during basketball games.
Okay.
And about that same time, we kick off the jazz band, which is a little bit different because it's a totally extracurricular activity. The other parts of the program are kind of taken care of during class, during the day.
Mm-hmm.
But jazz band is for those that are dedicated and willing to go above and beyond the school day, and they meet after school, much like an athlete does for their sports team.
Are you surprised by the students that you draw for jazz band, and especially being in your first year here, not realizing whether or not there was a base for anybody with the concept of jazz, or maybe has a passion with jazz?
I've been extremely surprised and extremely excited about it. It's really, again, rewarding
Mm-hmm.
and motivating to me as a teacher, because they didn't have a jazz band last year, and so I didn't know what kind of response I would get, and it's been a pretty good response. And as you witnessed on last week,
Mm-hmm.
you witnessed that there's actually a pretty good number of students that are involved in it, and really have had the dedication of time that it takes to put together an organization like that.
They certainly are very, very good. I was surprised by some of them, especially in the improvisational portions where they were playing their own little pieces there. Before we get too far ahead, about how many members in that jazz band at this point?
It's a little bit less than 20. The average jazz band is right about 19, 20 members, and that's our traditional big band instrumentation.
Okay.
Our big band at Yorkville High School, because I want to allow as many kids that would like to be involved to be involved. Is it not necessarily the traditional instrumentation? In other words,
as we found out the other night.
Yeah, that's right. In other words, if a flautist wants to play in the jazz band, I'll welcome them. Even if I had a tuba player who wanted to play, it'd be fine. Traditional jazz instrumentation would consist of 5 saxophones, 4 to 5 trombones, and 4 to 5 trumpets, as well as the rhythm section, which usually consists of a bass player, a keyboard player or a piano,
right,
and a drum set, and sometimes guitar.
Right.
So our instrumentation's a little bit different. We have 5 saxophones, as well as a flautist, a flute in the sax section. We have just 3 trombones. We're kind of looking for some trombone players. And then 3 trumpets and a clarinetist who plays with the trumpets.
Okay.
And then our rhythm section, we have 4 drummers in the rhythm section. One who doubles on piano, so he's been a real pleasure to have in the band, who's playing the piano. And then we have 2 bass players. One is kind of he's an 8th grader, and he's kind of a bass player in training, and he's coming right along. It's nice if our high school bass player can't make it to a rehearsal, that we've
Sure.
got a backup player. So.
An understudy, so to speak, as they say.
Exactly.
And yet you make it work. I mean, sitting there, I've had a class in college on jazz, but I forgot completely about what constitutes a traditional jazz band. But yet, the same concept is there. You're maybe sometimes mixing some non-traditional instruments. But who cares? It's jazz, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's no rules in jazz.
That's right.
And actually, one of the things that I like about incorporating some of those other instruments is that you can explore sounds that are non-traditional.
Yes.
And the actual word traditional is not even really an appropriate word when
No.
you're talking about jazz music. So.
Well, let's talk about the special event you have coming up here this Friday night. Tell us what it is and how people can get involved.
Well, I decided that because these kids had been working so hard and putting in so many hours after school and really showing their dedication, that we really needed to finish off the year strong and feature them as a jazz band. So we came up with this concept called the Jazz Showcase, and it's going to be an event that features only the jazz band, much like what the Madrigal Dinner does for the Madrigal singers at Yorkville High
Sure.
School. So we are planning on Friday night to turn our cafetorium, our fine arts performing cafeteria, into a jazz cafe situation, where we'll feature our high school jazz band, and also bringing in a guest artist from Chicago, Illinois, whose name is Anthony J. Gomez, and he's a professional saxophonist. The event, again, is this Friday at 7:30 p.m. in the cafetorium, and it will also feature coffee by Caribou, as well as some pastries by Panera Bread. Both those organizations have donated to the cause and helping us turn in our high school into a jazz cafe.
Terrific. And we'll consider this, what's the admission or donation that a person makes?
We're asking for $3 admission at the door for each person, and hopefully we'll have enough people there to cover the cost of bringing in a professional guest artist.
Certainly. And we do hope a lot of people will show up for this, because if you've never been exposed to jazz, I think many of the people that don't know about jazz, they may say to themselves, oh, I maybe have heard this before on the radio or on somebody's CD or stereo unit somewhere along the line there. But even if they haven't, they'll have a good toe-tapping time, and they'll be, well, as you so well do when you're directing the kids, as I notice here, you use a lot of facial expressions, a lot of gestures and such, but that's what the jazz feeling's all about, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, again, jazz is not a uniform music. You don't see jazz bands in marching band uniforms. It's really, again, non-traditional, and hopefully not the same stuffy environment that you would expect when you step into Symphony Hall in Chicago. So we hope to have a really good time, and we are setting it up like a cafe, and people should feel free to get up and go get another cup of coffee while they're listening to the concert. It's not the type of concert where we make sure that that everyone's paying attention at all times. Hopefully people are snapping along and kind of grooving to the swing music. So.
Yeah. Is it appropriate to say that some people use jazz music as background music to keep them in a certain mood or to keep them in a certain focus sometimes?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I'm kind of a jazz aficionado. As a trombonist myself, it's always been an important part of my music education and an important part of who I am. So as far as background music, jazz is about all I have on.
Again, our guest is Victor Anderson. He's the director of bands, again, in your first year here at Yorkville in the school district, right?
Absolutely.
Now, in your previous stints at the other schools that you've mentioned, had you had any opportunities to direct jazz or to start up a jazz band?
Yes, I have. Actually, my last school in Algonquin, jazz band was part of the curriculum. It was part of the day, so that was nice that we were able to fit that into the curriculum, and that it was important enough there that they realized that it was a part of music education that's not always reached.
Right.
If it's not in the curriculum and not every student can take advantage of that. That was nice because we didn't run into conflicts such as work schedules and athletic conflicts that the students may have. But something I noticed with that band too was it didn't have quite the team approach that a group that puts in all that extra time after school has.
Sure.
It didn't have that kind of togetherness and that bonding that happens because it was considered more of a class. And what grade am I getting in jazz band? And so it's there's pros and cons to either one. But I have been lucky enough to have a jazz band at every high school program that I've worked at. And I've always found that doing an event like this Friday night is always a great way to end the year and a great education for the students. I mean, having a professional come in and play with the kids there's nothing like it. It's really an awesome educational opportunity for them.
Well, not only them, I would think also for any parents and anybody from the general public who wants to find out what you're doing over there with this jazz band, it's an opportunity for them because probably not very many of them get an opportunity to be in a jazz setting. Around here, at least. Yeah,
that's true. That's true.
How many other high school bands around here actually have a jazz band that you can, going either west of Yorkville or sometimes you might get up closer to the suburbs and maybe find, but they have numbers there, obviously, where a lot of the kids have an extracurricular interest beyond marching band, orchestra, symphony. They want to experiment with jazz also. Out around here, though, I don't think you find too many jazz bands at the high school level.
Yeah, I think that's something that's kind of changing with the times and up and coming, and I really believe that a high school band program isn't complete if it doesn't have that jazz outlet.
Right, sure. And it also doesn't it offer an opportunity for the kids to step out of the somewhat structured settings of, say, marching band or sometimes the orchestra to really develop a sense of identity or a sense of style that's their own?
Yeah, definitely. And some of the things that I've found out in my experiences is that sometimes your best jazz players, the kids that can improvise the best, aren't always the kids that can read the music on the page the best. It's really it's like a left brain, right brain thing.
Right.
The improvisatory nature of jazz really brings out strengths in some students that you didn't know were there. So it's a great outlet for expression.
I think that's a great point to make there, and probably there have been a lot of studies to back that up, but I would imagine. Again, our guest is Victor Anderson, Director of Bands at Yorkville High School, teaching 7th through 12th graders, right?
Correct.
Okay, and he's inviting you, along with those of the Yorkville Jazz Band, that's right, the Yorkville High School Jazz Band, to come over and be a part of Friday night's little jazz band, little get-together there at the Jazz Cafe, though. The Yorkville High School cafeteria is where it's going to be happening at, over there on Game Farm Road. The start time's at 7:30 p.m. Our good friends at Caribou Coffee, Panera Bread are helping to support this event with some goodies over there. $3 donation or admission per person. If you would be so inclined to do so, certainly be well appreciated so that they can cover the cost of this event and be able to put this on again next year, which is what you're hoping to do, is be a continuous event, right?
Absolutely, and I hope that we can always we have lots of resources in the suburbs and definitely in Chicago. I hope we can always bring in a performing group or a performing guest artist, so that we can bring some of that culture out here to Yorkville.
Certainly. Well, let's talk about your interest in jazz. How did you first get involved at jazz? Can you remember the day that you turned it on, or found out, or stepped into it and found out this is what was calling to you?
I do remember. Actually, I can remember some of my days in middle school where we had just a really small group of students who were interested in playing jazz, and we would come in during lunchtime and rehearse with our junior high band director over in Batavia Junior High, and I can remember kind of dabbling around with it then. And then when I got into high school, I remember going out for jazz band, and I remember the upperclassmen really being into it, and that really turned me on a lot. And it was at that point in my life where I actually started to listen to the music a little bit. And it's kind of a strange thing to think of teenagers listening to Grandma and Grandpa's jazz records,
Yeah.
But jazz has continually developed and continually changed, and I think anyone who shows up to our event on Friday night will notice that we're playing both some of Grandma and Grandpa's jazz, and as well as some very modern jazz feels and jazz tunes.
Is it easy to define the difference between jazz, swing, big band? Back when they were all kind of popular and happening, weren't there fusions of one with another, or all three at some times, or is there very little difference in those terms or phrases?
That's a tough question. I mean, critics and jazz musicians alike have been trying to come up with a definition for the word jazz. But there's really all different kinds of styles of jazz that are encompassed under that term. The 40s swing era was really just kind of the beginning of that. It really goes back all the way to call and response of the slaves in the late 1800s, and then into ragtime with Scott Joplin in the early 1900s.
Sure.
And eventually the swing bands were developed in the 40s, and that's when Benny Goodman and Count Basie and some of those guys were around and making it happen, and that was the thing in those days. After that, after the big bands kind of dissipated, it turned into more of a small group thing, combos like John Coltrane and Charlie Parker and Miles Davis. And Miles Davis is well known for being a man who created lots of different styles within jazz, including cool jazz and fusion, and
right.
And he late in his life he was dabbling around with rap and jazz. I don't know if you remember that back in the 80s. I kind of forgot it. I did hear some overtones to that. I didn't know whether they were true or not, but I guess they were. Yeah, absolutely. So again, jazz is a forever changing thing, and it's kind of it's really impossible to nail down and really define. And that's okay, because we don't want to really pigeonhole some things. We want them to be free to express themselves and be able to carry on and maybe take on a different form for a certain era. I mean, it's always going to be there. It's going to be a component in somebody's music. It may be subtle or it may be outright in some cases, but it's always going to be there. Yeah, definitely. I hope so. Yeah. Tell us about your influences. Who were the jazz artists that you listened to that influenced you heavily? Ooh, that's a good one. Because you did play trombone, you said, right? Yes. I'd say my influences are constantly changing. Even sometimes even day to day, well, depending on who I'm listening to. Sure, it's part of the evolution, right? Absolutely. I'd say trombone players that have influenced me are J.J. Johnson, who's a great Indiana player, and Bill Watrous, who is just a beautiful romantic jazz sound on the trombone. As far as big bands, my ultimate all-time favorite big band leader was Count Basie. Oh yeah, the Kansas City guru and big band leader. there's just a style that Count Basie's big band had that nobody else could quite get, and it's just a very laid back, relaxed feeling, but at the same time can be just in your face jazz.
Sure, yeah. And that's the thing about it sometimes is it can be in your face, but it can also be subtle. It depends on your perception of what's happening, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. As far as jazz is concerned, and again, we're talking with Victor Anderson, Director of Bands at Yorkville High School, and we want to remind you, you're invited to come over and be a part of the Yorkville High School band's jazz band, little jazz cafe, as they want to call it, here Friday night, May 28th, 7:30 p.m. at the YHS Cafetorium, and it's $3 per person, and certainly the proceeds from that will go to support this event for next year. If you can support it, we certainly would appreciate that, but getting back to the jazz, are you hoping that in your capacity as a director of bands of hopefully taking some time during the school season and maybe getting more children interested, or at least offering it to them to take a listen to and find out if it's something that clicks with them?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my goal for next year is to start a jazz band at the middle school level,
really?
To get the younger kids involved in this genre of music, and then who knows, the possibilities are limitless. I would hope that someday when the high school band is large enough that it can support 2 high school jazz bands.
That'd be nice.
And like I say, the possibilities are limitless.
Do you think they might have more opportunities, more jazz band cafes or concerts with which to be able to be able to spread that music more?
Absolutely. The community performances are something that I really strived to get. This being my first year here, really kind of wanted to get to know the community a little bit, and I wanted them to know that the band program is available to them as a community service, and that's a great thing for our kids to be doing. I mean,
right.
You mentioned that at the banquet, ABWA banquet that we were at last week, what a great opportunity it was for the people that were listening. Well, that was an excellent opportunity for my students, and that opportunity of gigging in the community is something that really goes hand in hand with playing jazz.
Certainly.
As well. And so I hope that we can have many more of those opportunities for our students to perform throughout the community and do different banquets and whatnot. And besides expanding the realm into involving more and more students, there's also the possibility of forming a small group, like a little jazz combo with just a couple horns and rhythm section. Again, for those kids that really dive into it. So the possibilities are limitless.
Let's talk a little bit about what the parameters when you're playing your pieces, because obviously maybe some people thought you just had something in your mind there, or something that you memorized and you went with that, but you're playing from some sheet music to begin with. But at some point there, each of the solos performed by the kids is improvisational, correct?
Absolutely. I think that the general thought process from audience members is that they're just reading off music just like any other part of the band program, right. Whether it's marching band or orchestra or whatever. But again, jazz is truly unique and in many ways, but mainly in the way that students are composing on the spot. And the way that works is that every tune has a I'm trying not to get too complex here. Every tune has a main theme, which we call the head of the chart.
Okay.
And so that may just be the main melody.
Okay.
And behind that main melody, there's a series of chord changes that the rhythm section is playing, and that series of chord changes is the form of the piece, and it just keeps repeating over and over and over and over again.
Okay.
So after the horn players or whoever's playing the melody or singing the melody sometimes, after they sing that head, that main melody, then we kind of open up the tune for improv or composing over the same changes. So the form of the piece, or those rhythm changes that are happening, are basically the guidelines and the structure within what students have to work with. It's kind of like an artist. If they take a piece of canvas and background blue. Well, then they've got their blue background as their
The rhythm,
that's right, as their rhythm changes, and then they can paint what they would like over that.
Sure.
So.
But it's never going to be the same from performance to performance, though, right? They can change that if they want to. They don't have to play the same piece they played the week before or the gig before. They can change that if they want to.
Correct. We try throughout the year to learn many different forms, as well as many different styles, from swing to Latin to rock.
Right.
And those students they develop this database that they're learning over and over and over again.
Certainly.
And certain tunes share certain similarities. Some tunes share the same background chord changes, so they have that same palette to work off of. And if you can play one tune in blues, then you can play another tune because it's over the same background changes.
Okay, great. We're getting short on time here, I know, and such. I wish I had more time. We could sit here and discuss about what's so unique about jazz. But there is that opportunity to veer off the well-paved road and get off the off-beaten, the less traveled path for these performers, and try and just go out there and to venture. That's part of the progression. That's part of the evolution of learning and changing along the way. Also, is part of that improv. Is I want to do something a little bit different next time that we play this piece here because I have a better idea, a better grasp of what I want to play that fits my instrument best.
Sure.
That's what it's all about, really. But to hear several different solos within that same piece is truly gratifying, especially to you as a director, because at some point there, those kids are going to have a certain amount of cohesion. They're going to have played long enough together, and pretty soon you're going to start hearing that individuality, that style that's going to be their own signature.
And one of the goals as a jazz band director and as a jazz educator is to get the students to communicate on a level that nobody else can communicate.
Right.
Through their jazz music.
That's right.
In other words, the piano player who's just playing the chords knows exactly what the bass player is doing, who knows exactly what the drummer's doing, and they're all working to support the soloist.
That's right. And that's an amazing thing to witness and to experience, because when you see that blend so well and that segue from one to another or back into that piece again, it's very satisfying not only to the spectator, to the audience member, but it has to be very gratifying to you as the director of the jazz band, because now you realize the kids have grasped this, they know where they're going with it, and yet it's still improv.
It is, and it's probably not to take anything away from the teacher or the audience, but probably the most gratifying thing is being one of those performers that's communicating through music. It's almost like using a foreign language.
Yeah, I noticed a few smiles after some of those pieces by the jazz band members, so I think they're on the right path there, and obviously they have the right director in the form of Mr. Anderson right here with which to teach them. You have a lot of youthful energy in you. You have a lot of exuberance. I can notice in your hand gestures, trying to get the kids to bring it up, or to take it down a little bit, but to really let loose with that jazz style once they get into a certain that change, and the kids respond. It's great to see that the kids realize, hey, we can let our hair down a little bit. We can let it rock if we want to here, because we don't have to fit that traditional mold that they're sometimes used to doing. So I'm getting so excited about this right here. So tell us again about Friday night's event.
It's a jazz showcase at Yorkville High School in the cafetorium. It's this Friday, 7:30 p.m., and we are creating a jazz cafe environment. We're having Caribou Coffee come in and provide some drinks for us, as well as Panera Bread providing some pastries. And once again, we'll be featuring the special guest artist, saxophonist Anthony J. Gomez from Chicago, Illinois. It's $3 per person, and those tickets are available at the door.
Great. And you're looking for new jazz band members for the next school season, right?
Sure we are, always.
Okay. And who actually is invited to be in the jazz band?
It's open to all students that are concurrently enrolled in the high school concert band program.
Okay.
So it's somewhat of an elitist group that you have to be taking band as part of the classroom day, and basically the reason for that is the fundamentals we cover during the class and during the day are the things that you build your jazz basis off of.
Sure, you got to have a foundation there, a good base.
Yes, yeah, that's
BASE
right.
base.
Yeah, that's right.
Or a BASS base is always good to have too, right?
That's right, both of them.
If they want to contact you at the school, how do they get in contact with you?
Probably the best way is by email. It seems to be the way that the society's headed now. My email address is V as in Victor, V Anderson at yorkville.k12.il.us, or feel free to give me a call at the high school, which is at 553-4380.
Come out and see the Yorkville High School Jazz Band. You won't be disappointed. Again, special guest, saxophonist Anthony J. Gomez. Friday night, May 28th, 7:30 p.m. at the Yorkville High School Cafetorium on Game Farm Road at the Jazz Cafe, supported by our friends at Caribou Coffee and Panera Bread. $3 per person. Help them to help support this event so that they can bring it back to you again next year about this same time. Victor, great talking to you. It's too bad we're running out of time on today's program, but maybe we'll have the opportunity to do this again.
I hope so. Thank you, Chris.
Been our pleasure. Victor Anderson, Director of Bands at Yorkville High School for the 7th through 12th graders, has been our guest, inviting you to be part of the Yorkville High School Jazz Band Jazz Cafe Friday night, May 28th at the Yorkville High School Cafetorium. $3 per person. It gets underway at 7:30 p.m. And we are out of time on Community Forum. Thanks for joining us on today's program. We thank you for coming out and being a part of our audience today. For our guest, Victor Anderson, I'm your host, Chris Schwimline. Thanks for joining us.
You've been listening to Community Forum, a presentation of the WSPY FM 107 Public Affairs Department.